Hi, my name is Christine Calibas. I'm a health education student at the University of Florida, and I am presenting this lecture on Chapter 11 of the Planning, Implementing, and Evaluating Health Promotion Programs textbook to you today. In this lecture, we will cover social marketing as it relates to program planning and implementation. Once the lecture has ended, we will work on an interactive activity for the remainder of the class. I would like to note all definitions are pulled from Chapter 11 of your textbook and can be further reviewed on pages 312 to 340. Let's begin. By the end of this lecture, you should be able to complete the following learning objectives. List and describe the marketing mix. Identify key considerations in the exchange process. Define competition, consumer orientation, the exchange process, and segmentation. Justify and explain the diffusion of innovation theory. And justify why pre-testing is valuable to program planners. What is social marketing? Social marketing, as defined by our textbook, is using marketing principles to design programs that facilitate voluntary behavior change for improved personal and societal well-being. It is dedicated effort to understanding the priority population prior to developing an intervention and then keeping that knowledge at the center of all program planning decisions. In other words, it is a consumer-based approach for reaching out to the priority population. When it comes to marketing, as I have mentioned, it is a consumer-based approach. When planners are developing their marketing scheme, they make sure to have the priority population's preferences at the forefront of all their decisions. Every aspect of the development is tailored to the priority population. Keep in mind that every detail counts towards the probability of a more successful program implementation. How they spend their time, what do they value, what are the barriers, and how do they differ from among segmented populations. This should be done during the formative research phase of planning. A great model to use when addressing consumer orientation is the SMART model. This model accounts for a consumer analysis including the wants, needs, facilitators, and barriers of the priority population, a market analysis including competing behaviors, messages, or programs, and a channel analysis, which tackles how planners will communicate with the priority population. You can refer to page 58 in your textbook for more details on the SMART model. Now let's dive into the 4 P's of the marketing mix. The 4 P's, product, place, price, and promotion, are the building blocks of marketing. All sections are equally important and should all be included in the marketing strategy. The first P stands for product. The product is what is being offered to meet consumer needs. In program planning, the consumer is referring to the priority population. Products can be tangible or augmented, physical or non-physical, but should be chosen upon the values of the consumer. It is important to consider why the product is valuable and how it will benefit those who take part. For example, when someone buys a taxi ride after a night of drinking, they are ensuring they will get home safely while still drinking until last call. The taxi is the product, but the value is focused on the safety aspect of a night on the town. The second P stands for price. What are buyers going to have to give up in order to obtain the product? Costs are not secluded to just money. They include social, behavioral, emotional, mental, and psychological costs. Program planners should keep all of these costs in mind if they want to increase their chances of successful selling. What they are getting in return must appear to be more than what they cost. How are the benefits perceived to be greater than what they cost? For example, a free screening is held across town from a person's work. The cost of going to that screening is time spent on getting to and being provided the screening and driving across town for it. The benefits are that it is a free product and will give individuals peace of mind. I'd like to note that cost is not the same as barriers. Barriers are what keep people from responding to an intervention or doing a behavior. A cost can be a barrier, but a barrier does not always come with a cost. Some barriers do not cost a thing, but they stand in the way of receiving program benefits. A program planner's goal is to make the product or service easy to obtain and engage in the desired behavior while reducing and lowering its cost. The third P stands for place. Where will the priority population have access to the product? It should be easy to obtain and avoid places people do not feel comfortable or safe in, or places people don't normally go. What should also be considered is the time at which they will be able to obtain the product. What is the best possible time to make the product available? Consider work schedules, if there are kids involved, days of the week, etc. A program offering free screenings for company employees may have a better turnout if they provide them during employees' lunch breaks rather than late in the evening when they are trying to get home to their family. The last P stands for promotion. What most of you probably think of when you hear the term marketing. Promotion refers to how planners communicate with the priority population, how program planners reach out to their target audience. This includes, but is not limited to, the message, associated visuals or graphics, communication channels, how to obtain or purchase it, and the benefits they will receive. There are 4 purposes of promotion. First, we want to inform our consumers by increasing product awareness. Next, planners will want to persuade or to convince people to purchase the product. The third purpose is to reinforce. Planners will want to remind them that the product exists. Lastly, the program planner will want to position the product as being different from the competition. It is easy to identify common brands that are in competition with one another, such as choosing between a Lexus versus a BMW. But not all competition is equally comparable. Competition is the alternative choices for fulfilling a need. This includes other programs or services that are offering similar programs or products, or that are sending messages that are in conflict with the behaviors program planners are trying to promote. A program promoting an increase in the consumption of healthy foods will have to bear in mind the competing prices and convenience of fast food and cheap, high-calorie, low-nutrient foods that may deter the priority population from program goals and objectives. Just like marketing a business, program planners want to address the competition, but it should not be the core of their strategic planning. A book on marketing agrees with our textbook's consumer-based approach to planning. It says that focusing on the competition, rather than the consumer, results in companies' time and attention focused on benchmarking rivals rather than on understanding how to deliver a leap in value to buyers, which is not the same thing. The exchange process is the entire transaction from seller to market. Market, as defined by our textbook, is the set of all people who have an actual or potential interest in a product or service. Our market is the priority population. For example, the Centers for Disease Control funds a program called Walk with Ease, formed to increase physical activity among those who suffer from arthritis. The program sells an online guidebook to its priority population and has a website with tools they can use while being a part of the program. The priority population values the guidebook because it is informational, teaches them how to develop a walking plan that will meet their needs, keeps them motivated, and they can learn how to exercise safely. To keep your product or service consumer-based, consider these 5 elements when preparing a marketing strategy. 1. The buyer values the product. 2. The product supports the efforts to make a positive behavior change. 3. The product is set at a reasonable cost. 4. It takes the buyer minimal effort to receive the product. And 5. The benefits of the product is greater than it costs. Walk with Ease supports each concept with the end goal of living life with less pain from arthritis. I have mentioned this word before, but what does it mean? and why is it important to broker and planners? Segmentation is a way to divide the priority population into smaller groups. The goal is to create groups that are similar, have similar interests, similar barriers and facilitators, qualities or characteristics that are associated with being at risk for certain health topics or problems, and who will respond in a similar way to the intervention. Some of the advantages our textbook points out are that segmentation helps planners narrow the focus of their marketing strategy. It helps planners focus the promotion strategy for that distinct population. It helps planners use resources in an effective and efficient manner. And it positions program planners to develop a product that will meet the needs and desires of consumers. All of these advantages increase the likelihood of program success. There are two ways planners can segment populations. They can use information gathered from secondary data, or they can collect primary data using surveys, focus groups, and interviews. Next, we are going to watch a video that will explain the diffusion of innovation theory.
Innovation is such a fascinating topic, but how does it actually get adopted? Believe it or not, but in order to answer this question, we look back at a theory that was developed more than 50 years ago, and it's called the diffusion of innovation theory. Everett Rogers, the author of this theory, proposed 5 stakeholder groups that explain how innovation gets adopted over time and by different cohorts. The first group he called the innovators. These are the 2.5% who are out there literally sleeping in front of the shop to buy the innovation the day it comes out without being road tested. The second cohort is made up of early adopters, roughly 13.5%. The early adopters are the immediate second wave. The first buzz is over, the product is maturing in its abilities, and the early adopters get pleasure and satisfaction out of early usage. The early majority represent the third group, that is the next 34%. The product becomes widely known and mainstream, and the early majority group are those guys who ride this mainstream adoption. The fourth group, or the so-called late majority, is far more cautious. They represent roughly 34% and will wait, typically for decline in pricing, until first hiccups are ironed out, and only then will adopt the innovation. At the very tail end, the fifth and final group consists of so-called laggards. Laggards are the most reluctant, but finally they will get over the line and make up roughly 16%. Think about laggards as those guys who only now sign up for e-banking or maybe the internet. If you map these 5 cohorts of the diffusion of innovation theory over time, and according to these percentages, it will form a bell curve. If you now sum up this information across the bell curve, you reach the well-known S-curve. The S-curve, in 4 stages, describes how innovation is adopted in terms of the speed of adoption. At the very first stage, where there's very low growth, we see almost every startup entrepreneur on this planet. A lot of trial and error, a lot of prototyping, and many of these innovations will never see the light. If an innovation takes off, it ideally takes off in an exponential fashion. Exponential growth is what we see right now in many solutions, for example Uber and Airbnb. Rapid growth rates, and typically then we call them disruptive innovations. Once exponential growth is over, we enter the stage of slowing growth. And after that, we see a plateauing. Examples for plateauing over the last 5 years were analog photography or DVD players. So you can see how the diffusion of innovation theory, the 5 cohorts, can be mapped to the S-curve and allows us to understand who, in what sequence, and at what speed adopts innovation.
Once all of the planning has been developed, planners will want to pre-test their program and its marketing strategy. Why do planners pre-test? Like any new business, there is no guarantee it will hit the ground running. Pre-testing ensures planners will have created their programs in response to the needs, wants, and expectations of the priority population. It occurs during the development process, allowing planners to make necessary changes before the program is implemented. Any components that reduce the chance of success will be identified during development. In this process, the planner will want to collect as much feedback as possible from individuals within the priority population and with stakeholders. It is wise to also get feedback from people who have advanced knowledge about the program's topics. This will reduce chances of conveying false information. A few feedback questions to consider are: how likely will they use the product? What benefits do they see from using the product? What do they like about it? And what would they change and why? You can refer to page 335 of your textbook for a continued list of feedback questions to ask. In summary, we learned that social marketing is applying marketing principles to design programs. It is a consumer-based approach that addresses 4 P's in the marketing mix: product, price, place, and promotion. We know that competition is not only other products, but can also be alternative services for fulfilling needs. The entire transaction from program planner to priority population is called the exchange process and can be segmented into separate populations depending on similar characteristics. Lastly, we learned how the diffusion of innovation can be used in the program marketing and why it is helpful to pre-test marketing strategies for feedback before full program implementation. Does anyone have any questions about what we have gone over in this lecture today? I hope you all feel confident that you will be able to incorporate this knowledge into your future developments of health promotion programs.